I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. The first time I saw her, she was leaning over the counter at that half-dead bookstore on Franklin. Sleeves rolled, fingers thumbing through a stack of used poetry books like they were familiar lovers. I'd gone in because of the rain, really. Not for books. Not for her. But there she was. She glanced up as I shook water off my hoodie, her mouth twitching like she was about to smirk but decided not to. "Bathrooms for customers," she said, not unkindly. I was gonna buy a book. Sure you were. I'd meant to walk out. I ended up staying almost an hour, flipping through some Neruda with the spine half-cracked and a note on the inside that said to A. With all the things I never said. I didn't buy it. She still let me use the bathroom. After that, I kept coming back. Not in a weird way. Just enough that she started setting a coffee down before I even asked. Black, no sugar. The second time she did it, I asked how she knew. You looked like someone who doesn't try to like things he doesn't like. I smiled, then wiped it quick. Her name was Elena. 40-something, maybe mid. Not the kind of woman you call miss or ma'am. Just Elena. Her voice always had this low calm to it, like she'd figured out how to stop rushing years ago. The sleeves of her cardigans were always a little too long. She'd push them up and they'd slip down again while she talked. I didn't talk much. Mostly listened. She had stories about the neighborhood. The stray cat that lived under the fire escape. Some guy who kept trying to return a book he'd borrowed in 2009. She told them like someone who expected to be interrupted and didn't mind if she was. But I never did. Somewhere in the background, my life kept being what it was, quiet, mostly. School. A part-time job unloading trucks. A roommate who was always either sleeping or yelling on his headset. My texts were mostly unsent. My fridge had too much mustard. Still, I found reasons to swing by. To ask about books I didn't really need. To bring her a coffee once, just to see if she'd take it. She did. Just smiled and said, "Bold move." I started noticing things. The way she tapped her fingers while waiting for the kettle. How she looked at the door between customers. Like she was waiting but wouldn't say for who. The way she laughed, soft, as if she didn't want to wake something. Last Thursday, I stayed past closing without realizing it. She didn't say a word until the bell above the door rang and she locked it behind the last straggler. "You're not gonna leave, are you?" she asked, half laughing. "I can," I said quickly, too quickly. I stood, knocking into the chair. "Sorry, I didn't." She waved it off, then leaned over to pick up a receipt I dropped. I noticed the faded blue veins on her hand. A wedding ring tan. No ring. She walked me to the door, and just before I stepped out, she said, "You're quiet, but not in a lonely way." I didn't know what that meant. That night, just before 11, I got a text from an unknown number. "I forgot to give you the Neruda." Just that. No name. But I knew. And the next day, I stood outside her apartment building with the book in my backpack and too many thoughts I couldn't name. I knocked. And when the door opened, she was wearing nothing but a smile. Ask ChatGPT, she wasn't actually wearing nothing. It was a long sleep shirt, soft-looking and faded with time, the neckline loose on one side. But the smile, that part was real. Disarming. Calm. Like she'd been expecting me all night and wasn't surprised I showed up. "Didn't think you'd actually come," she said, stepping aside. "You texted." I shrugged. "You could have ignored it." I tried. That made her laugh. She led me in without turning on the lights. The living room lit only by a low amber lamp and the flicker of something on mute on the TV. A kettle clicked in the background. She poured tea for both of us. Her hand steady even as mine awkwardly cupped the mug like I didn't know where to put it. "I live upstairs from the shop," she said after a moment. "Didn't feel like going out in the rain again. Hence." She gestured at her oversized shirt. I nodded, too focused on the way her wrist brushed mine as she set the mug down between us. Her couch was narrow. Our knees touched when we turned. She must have noticed. She didn't move. I looked around, photos of landscapes, a chipped ceramic bowl with old keys, stacks of books, soft things that felt lived in. Nothing showy. Nothing for anyone else's benefit. "You always keep Neruda in stock?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She glanced sideways. Only the good ones. And the note inside it? Elena looked down, thumb rubbing against her mug. That was mine. From someone I used to know. I waited. She didn't offer more and I didn't ask. The silence sat with us like an extra person. Not heavy but not weightless either. Then she said, "You remind me of someone I used to worry about. Should I be flattered or concerned?" She smiled but didn't look up. "He was my son's friend. Lived 2 doors down. Quiet like you. Always acting like he owed the world an apology." I stared at the tea. "You have a son?" She nodded. "Grown. Lives out of state. We don't talk much." Her voice softened. Things got complicated. The word hung there like a coat no one wanted to claim. I thought about all the things I wasn't saying. About how I'd imagined kissing her once. Not out of lust exactly, but something slower. Stranger. Like wanting to be understood without needing to explain yourself. But I didn't move. She shifted, reaching for the book I'd brought, still in my backpack. As her hand brushed mine, it lingered, not accidentally. Not long. Just enough. We both looked down at it, then away. She said nothing. Neither did I. The TV light flickered on her cheek. Outside, the rain started again, softly tapping the windows like it was asking to be let in. I stood to leave, but stopped in the doorway. "Why'd you text me?" She didn't answer right away. Then, looking at her tea. "Because I wanted to see if you'd show up, or if I imagined the way you looked at me." I didn't say anything, but I smiled. Small, honest, and I left with the feeling that something delicate had just been handed to me. Things shifted after that night. I started noticing the pauses more, the silences between us. Not empty, but full of almosts. Like there was always something one of us was about to say, but never did. The bookstore stayed the same, mostly, but the way she looked at me didn't. Not longer, not bolder, just steadier, like she was searching for something. Or maybe checking to see if I was still searching, too. On Tuesday, I came in earlier than usual. She was behind the counter, hair tied back, sleeves rolled up like always, but something about her felt less arranged, less ready. "Thought you didn't do mornings," she said, not looking up from the receipt printer. "Class got canceled." "Lucky." I shrugged. She handed me my coffee, wrong today. Cream. 2 sugars. I didn't correct her. She caught it. Her eyes flicked to mine, then to the cup. "Right? Sorry." "Noah, it's fine." I took a sip. It wasn't. A man walked in. Older, mid-50s maybe, with a baseball cap and a familiarity that made my stomach twitch. He smiled at her like he'd been smiling at her for years. "Elena," he said warmly. "Mark." She didn't smile back. Just nodded. "I was just passing by. Thought I'd say hi." "Still passing by, huh?" His smile faltered. He looked at me, long enough to wonder, then back at her. "I'll call you," he said finally. "You won't." He left. I waited until the door stopped jingling. "Old friend. My ex-husband," she said flatly, then added, "He shows up every few months. Says the same things. Leaves." I nodded. Didn't ask more. She sat down on the stool behind the counter, rubbed her eyes like she hadn't slept. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Folded them, unfolded them, picked at a sugar packet until it tore open, grains spilling across the wood. She stared at them. "I shouldn't have texted you that night," she said suddenly. I looked up. Her eyes didn't meet mine. "Why not?" "Because I don't know what I want from you." Her voice was quiet, careful. "And I'm not sure you do either." The sugar crunched under my thumb. "I think about you. A lot. That's not the same." She stood. Smoothing her cardigan like that would fix whatever she just opened. I wanted to say something, anything, but it all felt too fragile to touch. Like if I pushed too hard, the whole thing would disappear. Instead, I followed her to the back, helped restock the returns bin. We worked side by side, not talking. Our arms brushed once, twice. The third time, I didn't move away. Neither did she. I reached up to shelve a book. She turned, close enough that I could feel her breath catch. Our faces were inches apart. I saw it in her eyes, that pull, that flicker of what if. I leaned in, just slightly, and then the bell rang. She stepped back and smiled, the polite kind this time. "Customer," she said. And just like that, the moment folded in on itself. It was one of those evenings that felt out of time. Late spring, still light out, sky a soft gray smudge. We walked in near silence after she closed the shop early. Said she needed air. I offered to come with. She didn't say yes, didn't say no. We ended up at the park 3 blocks down. A bench facing nothing in particular, just some patchy grass and a lamppost with a flickering bulb. She sat first. I followed, careful not to sit too close. She stretched her legs out in front of her, slow, like her knees were reminding her of something. Then, after a long pause, "You ever feel like you don't belong in your own life?" I didn't answer right away. She added, "Sorry, that sounded dramatic." "No, it didn't." She turned toward me. "Sometimes I wake up and I don't know what part I'm supposed to play. Like I've been acting in someone else's story too long and forgot my lines." I nodded because I knew that feeling. Had lived in it. A life filled with pause drafts, half-finished replies, a version of myself that never really settled into anything. "I used to want more," she said, picking at a fraying thread on her sleeve. "Then I got married, had a kid, worked, waited, got left. And now," she trailed off. I looked down at my hands. They were clenched without me realizing. I said, too quickly, "I hate when he comes in." She blinked. "Mark." "Yeah, him." Something tightened in my chest the moment I said it. I didn't even know why I admitted it. Just that I needed to. "You hate him." "I hate how you get quiet after. I hate that he thinks he still gets to knock and be let in. I hate that I have no right to say any of that." She looked at me properly this time. Not scanning. Not soft. Direct. "You don't know what you want," she said. Not accusing. Just tired. "I think about you when I shouldn't. In class. At night. When someone says your name wrong in a poem." She let out a breath, barely audible. "I don't know what I want either," she said. "That's what scares me." We sat there with it. The admission, the fear, the fact that something had just broken open between us. "I worry," she said finally, "that you'll wake up one day and hate me for this. For even letting you think it could happen." My mouth opened. Nothing came out. She looked away. "I'm too old to be someone's mistake." I wanted to reach for her hand. Just rest my fingers on it. Say without saying, "You're not a mistake." But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "Do you want me to stop coming?" She didn't look at me, didn't speak, just stared straight ahead, her eyes fixed on something far past the lamppost. And in that pause, that breathless, endless silence, I didn't know if she was about to answer or disappear. She stopped texting. Not in a dramatic way, just stopped. The next morning, I waited for the bell above the bookstore door to chime like always, for the soft glance and quiet "you're early" that she usually gave me without looking up. But when I got there, close sign. Lights off. A note taped to the glass. Back tomorrow. Except, tomorrow became 2. Then 3. I didn't want to overthink it. People get busy. People disappear for a day or 5. But I knew her rhythm. The slowness of it. The deliberate, gentle way she moved through the world. This wasn't part of that. By day 4, I stopped walking past the shop. Started rerouting home. Started pretending I didn't see her name when I scrolled my phone. No new messages. Nothing from her. Just the old thread sitting there, quiet, like it was holding its breath. I told myself not to go to her place. Not to knock. But I did. No answer. I stood there longer than I should have. Long enough to feel stupid, young, like I'd misunderstood the whole thing. Like I'd misread a language only I thought we were speaking. And then one night I saw her. Across the street from the bookstore. Leaning against a brick wall beside a man I'd never seen before. Taller. Clean jacket. Polished shoes. He was laughing at something, and she smiled back. Not the smile I knew, not the subtle, unreadable one. This one was easy. Bright. Like it belonged to someone else. She didn't see me. I watched just long enough to regret it, then turned before she could. That night, I sat on my bed with the phone in my hand, screen lighting up my face, thumbs hovering. Are you okay? Backspace. Did I do something? Backspace. Nothing sounded right. Everything felt too much or not enough. In the end, I typed, "You don't have to explain. Just let me know you're okay." But I never hit send. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew she wouldn't respond. Or maybe because I was afraid she would. The next week passed like winter dragging its heels. I got quiet again. In class. At home. Even with people who didn't know me well enough to notice. My roommate asked if I was sick. I told him I was just tired. I was lying. But not entirely. Because I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. I walked past the bookstore yesterday. The lights were on. Customers inside. She was behind the counter, scanning books, nodding politely. She looked up once. Our eyes met. She didn't smile. I kept walking. Didn't stop. Didn't wave. Didn't knock. It was raining again when I finally went back. Not because I knew what I'd say. Not because I had some speech worked out. I didn't even have an umbrella. Just stood outside the bookstore, soaked and half hoping she wouldn't be there. But the light was on. Inside, she was restocking the front table, sleeves pushed up, glasses low on her nose. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't disappeared, and she hadn't let me. I opened the door. The bell rang. She looked up, didn't smile, didn't frown either. Just waited. "Hey," I said, quieter than I meant to. "Hey." I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with that familiar soft click. "I wasn't going to come," I said. "But I didn't want it to end like that." She nodded, slowly. "Me neither." For a second, neither of us moved. The rain pattered against the windows like a clock we couldn't ignore. "I saw you that night," I said. She didn't pretend not to know what I meant. Just looked down at her hands, rubbed a thumb across her ring finger. "No ring. Still." "He's no one," she said. "Just someone from before. I didn't think you owed me an explanation." "You didn't." I swallowed. My jacket dripped onto the mat. I kept wondering if I made it all up. If I imagined what was between us. She looked at me, and this time it landed. That steady, unreadable gaze again, the one I knew. The one I missed. "You didn't," she said. My chest tightened. Relief and something else. Something heavier. "Then why pull away?" She breathed in. Not deep, just enough to feel like it cost something. "Because I wanted it to stop meaning so much." I didn't respond. She stepped forward. Not close. Just enough. "You're young," she said. "Not stupid, just young. And I didn't want to be a chapter you wish you'd skipped." I let that sit for a second. My hands felt cold. "Do you really think I'll forget this?" I asked. "Any of it?" Her voice dropped, barely audible. "I hope not. But I also hope you survive it." A small silence opened between us, wide enough to step into if we wanted. I did. I reached for her hand, hesitated, then just let my fingers brush the edge of hers. No grip, no claim, just enough to say, "I'm still here." She didn't pull away. Not immediately. "Maybe this doesn't go anywhere," I said. "Maybe we ruin it. But I don't want to wonder what would have happened if I never said anything." She looked at me. Tired eyes, soft mouth. The quiet kind of beautiful that sneaks up on you when you stop needing it to impress you. "You're saying it now," she whispered. And then just that. She nodded once, barely, like agreeing with a thought she hadn't said out loud. And in the soft pause after, she added, "Okay." It didn't happen all at once. No sweeping declarations. No kissing in the rain. Just a quiet folding into each other's lives. I started opening the bookstore for her on Thursdays. She liked to sleep in on those. Said she was getting old. I told her she was just efficient. She rolled her eyes and handed me the keys. We didn't define anything. Some days I stayed past closing. Helped count receipts. Flipped the open sign 1 minute too late. Some nights we sat on that same bench in the park. hands sometimes touching, sometimes not. We didn't talk about what we were doing. We just kept showing up. She still drank her tea too slowly. I still ordered black coffee, no sugar. She never got it wrong again. Once, a customer asked if I was her son. She laughed, loud and sudden, like the question didn't sting. I pretended to be offended. She called me kiddo all week after that. One morning, 8:47 a.m., I remember exactly. I walked into the shop, and she was already there, sitting behind the counter with her knees pulled up in the chair, glasses perched low, reading. She looked up, and without saying anything, just pushed a second mug of coffee across the counter. I took it. No words. No good morning. Just the soft ritual of people who had stopped needing small talk. Her son called once. I heard the name, the tone, the hesitation after she hung up. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "He's figuring things out." I didn't press. We never used the word love. Not because it wasn't there, but because it didn't need to be proven. It was in how she folded my hoodie into her laundry without mentioning it. In how I memorized which lights in her apartment buzzed and which switch fixed it. It was in the text I got on a Tuesday. Bench, no punctuation, just the word. I met her there 10 minutes later. She didn't say why, just leaned her head lightly on my shoulder. That was enough. Some nights she fell asleep on the couch while we watched old movies. I'd cover her with the throw blanket she always said she hated. She never moved it, and some mornings I left before she woke up. Not because I had to, but because the quiet of her apartment felt like something I wanted to protect, not interrupt. Months passed like that. Life didn't get easier, but it got softer. And on a cold evening in early fall, she looked over at me while we were closing shop, sleeves pushed up, glasses tucked into her cardigan pocket, and said, "You know you never actually bought a book." I smiled. I was waiting for the right one. She held my gaze for a second longer than usual, then turned off the lights, and in the darkened window, our reflections stood side by side. Quiet, imperfect, real, just enough.